Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1830B, and today's date is April 1st, 2019, and the title of the episode is 4 a.m. Talking Points, Comey Coded Message, Deep State Frenzy. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, they are in a frenzy. They're panicking, they're worried, they're afraid. They're trying to regain the control of the narrative, and it's all falling apart around them. They don't know what to do. Of course, they're calling out, saying, we want the full Mueller unredacted, report, and we need to have it. We're going to subpoena the report, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. And they're out there screaming and yelling because they're afraid, and they want to find something, someplace, somehow, somewhere, that they can point the finger at Trump. Because you know why? They have nothing right now. They have nothing to use. They had Mueller. He was their insurance policy. He was their firewall. Now they have nothing. That investigation that's going on in the House is ridiculous. Nobody cares. And they're trying to figure out a way to regain the narrative. And they're blocking everything that we see today. I mean, look at this unplanned movie that's out. Despite intense media opposition, an R rating from the MPAA, and big tech censorship, pro-life film Unplanned is wildly outperforming expectations at the box office. Now, already we can see there are problems with social media and other areas where they're trying to block this film. They don't want people seeing it, which is unbelievable. Unplanned Movie tweeted out the following: still waiting for an explanation as to why Twitter inexplicably suspended our account. I think we all know why. Perhaps it's because we are moving the needle, making a difference, and changing hearts and minds with hashtag Unplanned Movie. Now, they've already made $6 million this weekend. And it's expected to be the number 5 movie at the box office. The film was projected to bring in less than half of what it's generating thus far. And they've been trying to shut this down any way they possibly can. Unplanned Movie tweeted out again. Hashtag update. 200,000 followers in 36 hours. 100,000 followers since midday. 15,000 impressions a minute. Account wrongly suspended and now reset. A retweet from @Donald J. Trump Jr. and yet hashtag Unplanned Movie still not trending. Very interesting. Now, those numbers might seem like they're a lot, but I believe they should be much, much higher than that. And why do I say this? Well, Michelle Malkin, she tweeted out the following. Hashtag stop the bias. Here's the follow suppression on the video. Stop the games @Jack @Twitter. So she put together this little video of her trying to follow Unplanned. Now, every time she clicks the follow button, it seems like she's following Unplanned, but when she goes back to it, it shows that she needs to click follow again. So that means she's actually not following it. Now, think about this. Do you really think she is the only one? No. There's probably thousands upon thousands of people that are experiencing the same thing. Does that mean that Twitter is purposely doing this? Well, Unplanned was brought down, suspended. The follow button is not working all of a sudden. This account has never had any other problems until now. I mean, do we need any more proof? I mean, this is just unbelievable. Now, the White House, they are working on a secret healthcare plan with 3 conservative think tanks. We understand that Obamacare has been ruled to be unconstitutional, which means they're going to get rid of Obamacare. So they're working on a new healthcare system right now. So the White House, mainly through the National Economic Council, has been engaged on thinking about healthcare reform for a while now. And they've been engaged with a group of center-right health policy groups to talk about various proposals and ideas. The analyst said the administration has been having conversations on healthcare policy and has reached out to numerous think tanks, including the Heritage Foundation, the Mercatus Center, and the Hoover Institute. And I believe that they've been working on this for a lot longer than they're letting on. Actually, it worked out a lot better this way, where they didn't vote down Obamacare right off the bat, because you know why? They really didn't have a health care plan at that time, and I think it would have been an absolute disaster. Now they have the ability to take the time to work out a solid new plan that's going to benefit the American people, and it's going to benefit them in a way that we've never seen before. We see that the House Judiciary Committee, led by Chairman Jerry Nadler, they voted to authorize subpoenas for a full unredacted copy of the nearly 400-page Mueller report. And Nadler is out there saying, we want this now. Now, Barr sent Nadler and Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham a letter notifying them that he was working with Mueller to redact sensitive information which could affect ongoing matters, including grand jury material, information that would infringe on someone's personal privacy, or information which could compromise the Department of Justice sources and methods of investigation. Nadler responded, this isn't good enough. We want the whole thing unredacted. So let's stop and think about this for a second. So the enemy wants an unredacted report, and they want the whole thing transparent. They don't want any redactions. They don't care if it's classified. They don't care if it's something personal to an individual. They don't care about that. They want to see it all. So, if we take what they're saying and we apply it to the Uranium One scandal, the Clinton email server, 9/11, and the rest, should we not see the complete and unredacted investigations to all of that going back in time? I mean, like Q always says, 1, these people are stupid. 2, why interfere with an enemy while they're destroying themselves? Because we know the report's going to say nothing. But it opens them up. Think about what Mueller did during the investigation. He pulled all these people in for lying. And the mainstream media was behind it. The deep state was behind it. And now it can be used against them. This report can be used against them, because anytime they say, no, it has to stay redacted, no, you can't see this. Well, guess what? You asked for an unredacted report. Now everything can be unredacted, because as Q says, transparency is the only way forward. Now, it has been confirmed that Mueller dragged out this investigation for more than a year after finishing it. He exhausted his investigation into Trump's non-existent Russian collusion in December 2017, but kept the investigation going for more than a year, even though he was warned that he was impeding Trump's inability to govern the United States of America. By early December, he had exhausted all the evidence and the witnesses. Trump's former lawyer, John Dowd, said, so now we know that the Operation Crossfire Hurricane conspirators allowed the media narrative to continue through the 2018 midterms with no evidence. Would that qualify as election interference? Q says yes. And once again, they did this on purpose to keep the firewall in place to win the 2018 elections by saying that he's under investigation for Russian collusion. Can you imagine if the report came out before the elections? I don't believe they would have gotten the number of seats they would have gotten. So the question is, first of all, does Mueller have to repay all this? Does the mainstream media have to repay all this? Does the deep state have to repay all this? Because they went a year longer with this investigation for no reason. Well, we know that's not going to happen. But we have other surprises for them. They're going down. Now, Judicial Watch, they filed a lawsuit after ODNI failed to procure documents responsive to a Freedom of Information Act request filed on July 13, 2018. Judicial Watch filed the Freedom of Information Act request on the heels of an explosive committee hearing on Capitol Hill featuring former FBI Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok. During the hearing, Representative Louis Gohmert accused Strzok of ignoring a major Clinton email investigation lead from the Intelligence Community Inspector General. The Inspector General discovered an anomaly on the Hillary Clinton's emails. Gohmert said with nearly every single email going to an address that was not on the distribution list. Gohmert didn't disclose the entity to which the emails were forwarded, describing it as a foreign actor other than Russia. Where were the emails going? According to Gohmert, Inspector General Investigator Frank Rucker and attorney Janet McMillan relayed the lead during the meeting with 4 FBI officials, including Strzok and Dean Chappelle. Judicial Watch lawsuit seeks to force the release of documents it has sought since July 2018, which include all records and communications related to the meeting between the FBI and the ICIG. So they want to know where these emails were going. Let's see the evidence. And you can see why they've been holding back. They don't want to give this information out because it will show that these messages, these emails, were being forwarded to a foreign country that the server was not hacked into. It was completely open. And they were actually forwarding classified information to other individuals outside of the United States. Now, Paul Sperry, it seems like he did some digging and he might have found how the 4 a.m. talking points are created and how they are disseminated among the mainstream media. Key Democratic operatives and private investigators who tried to derail Trump's campaign by claiming he was a tool of the Kremlin have rebooted their operation since his election with a multi-million-dollar stealth campaign to persuade major media outlets and lawmakers that the president should be impeached. The effort has successfully placed a series of questionable stories alleging secret back channels and meeting between Trump associates and Russian spies, while influencing related investigations and reports from Congress. The operation's nerve center is a Washington-based nonprofit called the Democracy Integrity Project, or TDIP. Among other activities, it pumps out daily research briefings to prominent Washington journalists, as well as congressional staffers, to keep the Russia collusion narrative alive. TDIP is led by Daniel J. Jones, a former FBI investigator, Clinton administration volunteer, and top staffer to California Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein. It employs the key opposition research figures behind the salacious Unverified Dossier, Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson, and ex-British intelligence officer Christopher Steele. Its financial backers include the actor-director Rob Reiner and billionaire activist George Soros. Now you know why Rob Reiner is screaming at the top of his lungs all the time. The project's work has been largely shrouded in mystery, but a month-long examination by real, clear investigations, drawn from documents and more than a dozen interviews, found that the organization is running an elaborate media influence operation that includes driving and shaping daily coverage of the Russia collusion theory, as well as pushing stories about Trump in the national media that attempt to tie the president or his associates to Russia. The group also feeds information to FBI and congressional investigators, and then tells reporters that authorities are investigating those leads. 5 days a week, TDIP emails a newsletter to influential Democrats and prominent Beltway journalists under the heading TDIP Research, which summarizes the latest collusion news and offers points of interest to inspire fresh stories regarding Trump's alleged ties to Russia. Recipients of the TDI report include staffers at the New York Times, Washington Post, and investigative reporters at BuzzFeed, ProPublica and McClatchy, as well as news producers at CNN and MSNBC, according to a source familiar with the project's email distribution list. Democratic aides on Capitol Hill also subscribe to the newsletter. The briefings typically run several pages and include an executive summary and links to court documents and congressional testimony letters and memos, as well as new articles and videos. So, for example, on March 13th, TDI Bulletin, for instance, highlighted former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's sentencing without informing readers that special counsel Robert Mueller closed the case without any collusion accusations against Manafort, who was punished for personal financial crimes. And if we go back to post 760, and Q mentioned the 4 a.m. talking points many, many times throughout the post, but if we go back to post 760, it says, at Snowden, thank you for showing the world how clowns pass the narrative to journalists at 4 a.m. Reread crumbs, secure drop, John Perry, Barlow, Q. So it looks like this is part of the 4 a.m. drop. This is how the news gets out there. This is how the narrative is created. And there are certain individuals that are funding all this. And this is being distributed to the mainstream media that puts out these fake stories. So they're trying to control what people hear and see. And what do we call this? We call this propaganda. There's no investigative reporting. There is nothing. They're just getting the feeds in there and they're going off on what they're receiving. They're not checking any facts. They're not doing any of that. Now, Trump, he calls the census meaningless without the citizenship question. He tweeted out the following: can you believe that our radical left Democrats want to do our new and very important census report without the all-important citizenship question? The report would be meaningless and a waste of the billions that it costs to put together. Now, the president, his comments comes 1 year ahead of the next census milestone, April 1st, 2020, the date by which the Census Bureau plans to send a letter or door knockers to every U.S. household. The massive data collection is undertaken every 10 years and has major implications, including alterations to the apportioning of congressional seats, the drawing of political districts, allocations of local and federal funding. A federal judge in New York blocked the Trump administration from adding the question in January, arguing that the addition was illegal and intended to discriminate against non-citizens, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you're not discriminating against them. You're asking them a question. Are you or are you not a citizen of the United States? Now, since this was shot down in a New York court, this is now moving to the Supreme Court in April, and a decision should come by late June. Now, Trump has to go through this many, many times, where he starts off in the Ninth Circuit or in the courts of New York or someplace else, and then it moves into the Supreme Court, and then they rule. And of course, it seems that the Supreme Court always rules in the complete opposite way that the other courts have ruled. So I do believe that Trump is going to get this question. And this is very important for the elections coming up, because it's going to show how many non-citizens are here in the United States. And I think there's a lot more than we even think. But don't worry, the deep state, they're in a frenzy, they're in a panic, they don't know what to do. So they're trying to manipulate the elections any way they possibly can. Remember Pelosi? She wants to allow 16-year-olds to vote. They're very angry at Trump because they won't let the illegals in because they use those votes. So now they're trying to get rid of the Electoral College. Senator Brian Schatz, who's a Democrat in Hawaii, is set this week to introduce a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. Now, is this going to happen? Most likely not. But it is supported by Kirsten Gillibrand, Dick Durbin, Dianne Feinstein, and many others. So why is it going to be tough to pass this? Because first, it needs to win over 2/3 of both chambers of Congress and then be ratified by 3/4 of the states. And I don't believe this is going to happen. Now, why are they so worried? Why are they pushing so hard? Because Trump is shutting down every piece of manipulation that they're trying to do. They wanted the illegals to come in. Well, a wall's being built, and we have border agents stopping the illegals from coming into the country. They can't use the votes from the illegals. They want to have 16-year-olds vote. I don't believe that's going to happen. They don't want the citizenship question on the census questionnaire. And I believe the Supreme Court's going to say, yeah, there's no problem with that. And we're going to find out, wow, there's a lot of illegals in this country. And what is that going to mean? They're going to take it to the next level. Remember, during the midterm, they've been tracking, they've been investigating, they've been recording all of the voter fraud that has been going on. They have the report. Q has told us that voter IDs are coming. Think about what they're going to use. They're going to use the census. They're going to use the investigation. They're going to use all of this to push voter ID. And most likely, we will see voter IDs before the 2020 election, which means the deep state, they're screwed. Now, in a recent op-ed, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg implored the state to get more involved in governing the internet. He said, every day we make decisions about what speech is harmful, what constitutes political advertising, and how to prevent sophisticated cyber attacks. These are important for keeping our community safe, but if we were starting from scratch, we wouldn't ask companies to make these judgments alone. Zuckerberg's case for government-instituted speech codes is a cynical attempt to deflect criticism aimed at his company, but it is also repelled by two corrosive political myths. For starters, there's no such thing as harmful speech. There might be speech that offends us. There might be speech we disagree with. There's also speech that's inarguably ugly, dishonest, pornographic, despicable. We allow these unpleasant words to go largely unregulated because we value the broader liberty of being able to offer opinions without government censors dictating which thoughts are acceptable. So if Zuckerberg wants to rid his platform of this hate speech, no one's stopping him. Facebook allegedly employs a number of mechanisms to achieve this very task. Think about it. If you don't like something that's being said on the TV, you can change the channel or shut it off. If you don't like something being said on Facebook, you can block it. You don't have to be on Facebook. But Zuckerberg also claims that we, as a society, now have a special responsibility to facilitate his efforts to keep people safe from reprehensible rhetoric. We have no such obligation. Facebook already offers users the ability to block or ignore accounts they find distasteful. Think about it. If someone's on Facebook or Twitter and you don't like what they're saying, what do? You block them. You never hear from them again. And that's the beauty of free speech. Because remember, what offends one group doesn't offend another. And you have the right, the ability to shut whatever they're saying down by not listening anymore. But guess what? Those people have the right to say it. But these people don't want that. They want complete censorship. They'll tell you what's okay to block and what's okay to listen to. That's government censorship. So Zuckerberg wants to institute these plans in a common global framework. Well, Putin recently signed a bill that makes it a crime to disrespect the state and spread fake news. France, who Zuckerberg says he's already working with, has passed hate speech laws that allow the banning of political content, as do many other nations, including Canada. And what about China? I mean, Google is building a censorship engine for them. I mean, these are the countries that Zuckerberg would like to follow. Remember, this is America. We have rights. We have the Constitution. Free speech means all speech. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but the people have the right to speak. If you don't want to listen, don't listen. But the government or any other individual can't tell you what you can listen to and what you can't listen to. The bottom line is that Facebook is now actively asking for a global government involvement in regulating the internet. The last thing America needs is for our speech to be regulated under a common global framework. The founders gave us the First Amendment protections for a reason. They saw how their current common global framework was functioning and wanted no part of it for their grand experiment. Now, out in California, it looks like things are not going well for the gun control groups and all those individuals in government who want to get rid of our weapons. On Friday, San Diego-based U.S. District Judge ruled California's law against high-capacity gun magazines was unconstitutional. California law has prohibited buying or selling a magazine with over 10 rounds since 2000, but those who had them before then were allowed to keep them. In 2016, the legislature and voters approved a law removing that provision. The California arm of the National Rifle Association then sued, and the judge sided with the group's argument in defense of the right to bear arms. He cited stories of 3 women confronted by armed intruders in their homes. One woman, who had a high-capacity magazine, was able to kill one of the 3 armed intruders, scare the others off, and call for help at the same time. The other 2 women ran out of bullets during the home attack. A federal judge declared California's ban on high-capacity gun magazines over 10 rounds as unconstitutional on Friday, following a lawsuit by the National Rifle Association. San Diego's based U.S. District Judge ruled the law against high-capacity gun magazines was unconstitutional, blocking the state from enforcing the voter-approved ban outlined California's Proposition 63. And what's very interesting about all of this is that these gun grabbers who want to get rid of our weapons, they keep creating laws that say, well, you're not allowed to have this. Well, you're not allowed to have this. And if we just go back to the Second Amendment, we just go back to the First Amendment, you just go back to all the amendments that the Founding Fathers created. They're very simple, they're easy to follow, and we don't need all these other laws. If you read the Second Amendment, it's very straightforward. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the Founding Fathers didn't say the right of the people to keep a musket, the right of the people to keep a single-shot pistol, the right of the American people to keep a knife. They specifically said the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Any arms. We have the right to have them. That's why they put it in there just like that. Because they knew that weapons would advance as time went on. And they needed a word in there to say all weapons that were equal to the military. That's right. Because they knew that this Second Amendment, it protected everything else. Because a people that have the power of a weapon, they are in control. The people that are stripped of this weapon, they are controlled. And this is so simple, but the deep state wants to make it very complicated, and make it seem like we don't have these rights. And they can take them away at any time, which they cannot. We see out in Ukraine, Poroshenko is running an election, and it looks like Poroshenko is losing ground with 70% of the ballots counted, and Vladimir Zelensky leads the race. Now, this is very interesting because if you go back to the time where we had the coup d'etat for regime change in Ukraine, Poroshenko was actually placed in this position, and he's destroyed the country. Actually, the deep state destroyed the entire country. And it looks like the people are fed up right now, and it looks like Poroshenko is going to be pushed out unless he does something to stay in power. And this might tell you something. Things might be changing because you have to remember Q has been telling us, and Trump has been telling us, that instead of Russian collusion, it might be Ukrainian collusion. So we might see a lot of things change once this is all said and done. Now, very interestingly, Comey has tweeted out another strange coded message. He says, "I'm in. We need someone in the middle. #2020. It's a picture of him on a road looking down the street, and his back is toward us. Now, we know the middlemen, Comey, Brennan, Schiff. Is he saying that they're planning something for 2020, but we need someone else? Maybe. And he's confirming that he's in. It's starting to seem that way. It seems like there's another plan forming right now. And I do believe with the 2020 elections that we haven't seen the candidate for the 2020 elections. Yes, we have Biden, we have Beto, we have all these other individuals that are saying they're running. But I believe the deep state, they're keeping one candidate behind the scenes. And they'll bring this individual out. And this individual has been groomed for this position. This is what they did with Obama. Everything about him was shaped perfectly. He came out of nowhere. And I believe this next candidate will be brought to the attention of the American people. But this time, I don't think it's going to fly because we understand how the deep state works. And I want to leave everyone with the following tweet by Wyatt. This is at SayWhenLA. He tweeted out the following. It's been 60 plus years, obviously way more, that government has been hiding dirty, dirty secrets, and President Trump is first one not part of their inner circle. So they tried to make an example of him and are winding up exposing themselves. Don't you love it? And this is exactly what they tried to do. They tried to expose him, get rid of him, make him an example, never go against us, and it's all backfiring on them. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.